Now, Washington Mornings on the Mall. 105.9 FM. At AM 630. WMAL.
8:07 on WMAL, where Washington comes to talk. Brian Wilson is here. Larry O'Connor's taking some time off after Thanksgiving to be with family. We are pleased to be joined by our good friend Stephen Moore from the Wall Street Journal. By the way, Stephen, I've neglected to talk about your book. Tell me about your book very quickly.
Just came out, called Who's the Fairest of Them All? It takes on this whole idea that tax fairness is soaking the rich, and a lot of the statistics we've been talking about this morning. So it's a good way to be armed against liberals when they say, soak the rich and America is becoming poorer and the middle class is declining. It's all not true.
I'm out to get it today because that is something that I think you and I'm amazed at how similar our thinking is on so many issues. You're a very bright man, obviously. Another bright guy standing by on the phone. He's our good friend from the Daily Caller, Tucker Carlson. How are you, Tucker?
Oh, good morning, gentlemen.
Hey, Tucker, you're looking good on Fox this morning.
Well, I was feeling a little sleepy, but I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, so, Tucker, where to begin? Okay, first of all, let's talk about the fiscal cliff. Are we going to go over it? And I'm getting the impression that Republicans, I don't know, maybe I'm reading the tea leaves wrong, but it sounds like some people are ready to cave here when it comes to...
Some of them?
Eager to cave. I was talking to a member of the Senate last week, and I said, just the obvious question you ask yourself at the beginning of a negotiation. What's your limit? What's the point past which you will not go? Right? How much will you pay for this thing you're buying? And this senator said to me, we don't have a limit. There's no consensus on how far we'll go. So they've already lost the negotiation, at least as of today, as far as I know. The Republicans have moved on the key question, will you raise taxes on the rich? Mm-hmm. The answer, yes, they will. But Democrats have moved not at all, so far as I know, on the second half of the equation, which is entitlements. I mean, we have this multi-trillion-dollar debt because of unrestrained entitlement spending. That's the singular cause of that debt. Right. And I don't see any movement on Social Security, very little on Medicare. And to be fair, actually, it's not just the Democrats. You don't hear Republicans press.
You know what, Tucker, that's just where I wanted to go with this. I want to run a theory by you, and let me know if you agree with this. And Brian was challenging me a little bit on this earlier, but I think the Republicans should basically say, let's go with this sequester. Let's just cut every government program by 8 to 10%. What's wrong with that? I mean, the private sector has done it. Private households have done it. And O'Brien made the point, and there's a lot to this, that there's some real national security
I'm with you up until we get to defense spending.
We haven't cut spending in 20 years, and finally we've got this contraption to automatically do it. I mean, Tucker, why are Republicans backing off on that?
Well, here's the thing. Well, I think the cuts are ludicrously aimed at,
defense.
First the defense spending,
right,
but also discretionary spending, which is not the problem. It's entitlement spending. But okay, they're not the cuts I would like. Here's why I think it might not be such a bad idea to go over the cliff. The tax code is so distorted,
right,
that the average person has no sense of what government costs.
Right.
If you're wondering how we can get tax cut after tax cut through generations and government increases at the same time, how does government get bigger as we get tax cuts? I'll tell you why. Because the average person feels no pain, has no skin in the game. Rich people pay for everything, and therefore there's no sense among the population that this stuff costs money. And maybe if ordinary people actually paid taxes, right, paid for this stuff, then people would revolt. If people actually had to take out of their wallet the money that these programs consume, they would say, you know what, I don't want these programs. And so I don't know. I'm not against making the tax code less progressive. I'm not.
Yeah. I just worry that if they have this big tax increase, and actually polls, I think, validate this, that they're not going to use that money for cutting the deficit. I mean, that's why I think the Republicans are making such a big mistake here. I just worry they're repeating the mistakes of the early 1990s. I mean, they're going to spend the money. Look at Obama's budget, Tucker. I mean, he has $150 billion of new spending he wants to do this year. He doesn't want to cut any of these programs or any of the entitlements. So we just created a $1 trillion new entitlement program, for goodness sake, called Obamacare.
Look, we're spending billions of dollars. This was just announced last week on energy efficiency in Asia. Now, why would a broke country do that? And I know the answer. Because this is not perceived as a broke country. The average person doesn't understand that we have no money.
Yep.
Why does the average person not understand that? Because the average person, literally the average person, is taking more out of the system than paying in.
Well, if you talk to people who are not paying taxes right now, federal income taxes, and you say to them, how would you feel if every $10 that you made you had to give 5 of them to somebody else. And they would go, well, of course, that's ludicrous. I don't want to. But that's indeed what happens to some people in certain tax brackets when you figure in state and federal taxes.
Well, literally. So there's no, what you're saying, in other words, is there's no incentive for fiscal continence. There's no incentive. You don't see the bill. The average person doesn't see the bill. And if you don't know what the entree costs, why wouldn't you order the surf and turf? You would. But if you actually had to pay cash, this is like any financial advisor will tell you, if you're in trouble, if you have a spending problem, and most people do, pay cash. Don't charge anything. Actually, go to the ATM, get a pocket full of 20s, and next time you go to the store, pay in $20 bills.
Here's what I would give it all up if they would just simply allow one thing, because it would ram home to every single person in America how much government costs. Instead of having it automatically deducted from your paycheck,
I'm with you on that.
I want everybody at the end of the month to write a check to the government for their part and have to actually physically write that check and look at the number.
Right.
And if you did that, I guarantee you there would be complete outrage in this country.
Totally agree.
Well, there would be, and the one thing that conservatives and libertarians need to get real about and stop lying to themselves about is people are for big government. I mean, that is the lesson of the last election. People are for big government. And I know every conservative listening will say, that's not true. Well, actually, it is true. We know that because Obama was just reelected. So the question is, why? And I think the answer is because they're not paying for it.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of truth to that.
And once they're paying for it, they won't be for it.
All right,
so it's pretty easy to be for big government if, like, somebody you never met who lives on Nantucket or Jackson Hole is paying for it. But if it's you, you're not for it.
Okay, so now, in order so that you don't, if you want to really pay some taxes, all you got to do is win the Powerball this weekend. Are you a Powerball player, Tucker?
Every time when I go in, obviously at the end of the day for my Newports and malt liquor, obviously I buy a lotto ticket because I can't help it. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, I'll be playing. No, of course I'm not playing lotto. I've got to work. That is, I'm not much of a moralist. I, generally am libertarian. People should be able to do what they want, and that applies to lotto. But I have contempt for it, I got to say. I think the government, it's such a ripoff. If you play the mafia-sponsored lotto when you
the odds are much better under the mafia, right?
They pay you the full amount.
Yeah.
You win the government lotto, first of all, they take half in taxes, and then they pay you like $20 a year for 1,000 years or something. It's ridiculous.
All right. Well, then we'll put you. I'll just buy I'll buy your ticket and keep it.
Thank you.
Hey, listen, Tucker. Always a pleasure, my friend.
You guys wound me up. Thanks.
Okay,